To talk more about this, we're now joined by Economist Dr Azar Jammine. Doctor, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. What seems to be weighing down heavily on the Transnet balance sheet is the effect of crime, R1 billion lost per month to losses of vandalism. And they spent R4 billion just on security. The CEO says if they can reduce this by a third, the company is profitable. It means that that 1.9 billion loss that they had reported just falls away. But that seems to be emblematic of where the country is at the moment. What could be done to turn around the security of key infrastructure like Transnet's rail network?
You're asking me what can be done. Clearly, we need to improve our security system and try and eliminate corruption that exists in much of the security and intelligence that the country is supposed to be receiving assistance from. It's become quite clear from many of the examples that we hear on the daily news that a lot of the criminal activity stems from inside jobs, people who are connected to connected people. And so it makes it that much more difficult to stem the level of criminal activity in this way. I think Transnet CEO Phillips made it quite clear, is pouring money into trying to stop this, but it still isn't overcoming the problem. And as you quite correctly say, this is emblematic of the critical problems faced by the entire economy. It's not just the transport sector. There are many other sectors that are similarly facing criminal activity, and much of it is organized. It's criminal syndicates, and these syndicates have connections, as I say, to very important people very often, and we've got to get to the bottom of that. If so long as there is not enough of a will politically to tackle the issue, we won't manage to succeed in it. We need real political will to succeed in that.
Another inefficiency weighing heavily down on the balance sheet of Transnet is the lethargy with which its port business is being managed. And that is not a crime problem. That is a self-inflicted problem, because that means that the port operations aren't efficient. In fact, the World Bank's Container Port Performance Index ranks the Cape Town and the Durban port as the worst performing ports in the world. And I must tell you that along this index are ports operating along the Horn of Africa, and that's where South Africa ranks as far as this is concerned, at least Transnet is concerned. And it needs to turn around its port business, because that speaks to our export efforts. South Africa has heavy bottlenecks when it comes to trade, and Transnet seems to be one of them. Structural reforms are needed there, but do we have the political imagination and political will to achieve those?
That's the correct question to ask. Do we have the political will to achieve that? And it's very similar to your previous question. And but it does go to the heart of why the South African economy is languishing with growth rates of 0 to 1%, when most other emerging markets are growing at 4, 5, 6%, even in other African countries. South Africa is lagging the rest of sub-Saharan Africa and is earmarked to actually drop out of its importance as a leading African economy in the long run if it carries on this way. And you're quite right to highlight the fact that there is insufficient political will to tackle these issues, because there are too many people involved in running these activities who stand to benefit financially and organize and put their hands in organizing activities and granting the appropriate tenders to friends and other such examples, and are involved in criminal activity, all of which actually leads to this inefficiency and incompetence. And it goes beyond just our ports. Our municipal infrastructure is also very much on a par with this. So this is, as you began your piece here today, emblematic of the fault lines facing the South African economy.
And just lastly, we seem to have grown accustomed to a new form of bailout. It's called debt restructuring, and where we move the debt from the balance sheet of the entity into that of the sovereign book. It smells like a debt. It smells like a bailout. It certainly does become a bailout. But it's worked, at least for Eskom. It's given it breathing room in its capital expenditure and in its cash flows. And Eskom has been able to do amazing things as far as maintenance is concerned. Would a similar approach work for Transnet?
A similar approach would work, but I think what we really are, and I think Transnet is actually tackling us in a manner that might even prove more effective than Eskom, and that is to involve private sector involvement in a lot of these operations. You don't have to hand over the operations to the private sector, but just get them involved and get some of the financing from them and give them seats on the boards. Then you have some sort of oversight of the activities to prevent a lot of the malfeasance we've been talking about.
Yeah. Dr. Azar Jammine, it's always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time and your insights this evening. It really is a pleasure. Dr. Azar Jammine is an economist.